it off, Russ. The Cotton Bowl, I love these New Year's Eve games because a lot of them really go off right around midnight uh, in terms of the finish. And we've had some classic finishes in recent years. This game kicks off December 31st, 7:30 p.m. Miami Hurricanes, Ohio State Buckeyes. You mentioned it. It was a slobber knocker affair between the Hurricanes and the Aggies down there. Texas A&M with a tough defense. And Miami's offense struggled down there to the end. And I talked about it last week. I felt like Malachi Tony was going to be the best player on the field. The end around reverse touchdown near the end of the game. He ultimately did put the Hurricanes over the top. But you mentioned Carson Beck and the accuracy and a couple things, the experience. Here's a man who is 35-5 as a starter for his career. Now, the other interesting thing when I take a look at Carson Beck is 60% of his passes travel less than 5 yards. And I don't want to say he's become somewhat of a Charlie check down, but the offense in Coral Gables that he's running is a much different offense than the one he ran in Athens. And Georgia, I think he was asked to air it out a little bit more, push the ball downfield, put the offense a little bit more on his back. Miami, we saw it. I mean, Mark Fletcher carried that offense. They're going to need Fletcher to carry the offense again against Ohio State. But if they're going to knock off the Buckeyes, Beck's going to have to take some chances downfield and show that he can make the big play.
Well, I think there's no doubt. I think that's the thing I wanted to see in the A&M game was I want to see him push some angles, force some balls that not force balls into bad spots, but force some balls where the defense was put the pressure on them. Force that safety to get there faster on the outside and too deep and stuff like that. I will say part of what you have to sort of like is, yes, you can say Charlie check down or whatever you want to call it, but there is some maturity there for Beck because early in his career, he was more of I'm throwing this ball down the field. I'm making big plays all the time. So at least now you see that he's learned a little bit about don't put the ball in bad spots, be efficient. I spoke to a scout this week, and we specifically talked about Beck, and he said the frustrating part when you watch this kid is he said there's no doubt physically he's as good as an NFL starter, physically throwing the ball, movement ability for a big, tall kid. He said there's everything there physically. He said you just don't see it consistently. And he said those are the guys that often end up slipping in the draft because coaches and scouts get nervous about why has this guy been a 3-4 year starter and he hasn't gotten better at consistency. So that's the concern teams have. But talent-wise, and I think although there were questions about all the stuff maturity-wise early in his career, I think a lot of what you've seen in terms of how he's matured on the field, how he's played more consistently, I think that eases some of those concerns for NFL teams. Very interesting kid. But I will mention there are a few other guys that you had mentioned early in the season that really, to me, had big games. I mean, the Keelan Marion kid from UConn. I mean, he was not making game-changing like 60-yard plays, but he made 3 or 4 key third down plays where he took a 5-yard catch, turned it into a 6-yard first down, or whatever it may have been. And the other kid, the one that you've been literally hyping since almost before the season, and the only reason is because he played at Jersey School Rutgers, is the Toure kid. I mean, you talk about a kid that had a great game. I mean, he showed the ability, and I think you had mentioned that Coach Shiano had said this kid's one of those freak talents athletically. Yeah. He showed it this game. There were a few plays where, and one of the things as people learn about this business, when you watch a linebacker, one of the great ways to evaluate their speed is when they're actually on the back side of the play when the play starts and the ball goes away from them, the guys that can track it down before the ball breaks the line of scrimmage, that's when you know you have a rare guy speed-wise, a rare explosive speed. And he showed explosion throughout this game that not many college players have. I was really impressed with it. And then again, they have the kid that everybody's talking about, the black kid, I think is his last name, that everybody's saying is the top pass rusher. But again, Mesidor, the kid from Canada, he had a really good game. He may not be.
He sure did, man.
He was everywhere. He was running around. I mean, this is a kid that I think when the season began, a lot of people were talking about, well, he's Canadian. He'll probably be a CFL guy, maybe an undrafted free agent. I think he has put a clear stamp in that he's going to be drafted, and I think he's going to be drafted before the end of the first 100 picks. This kid's ability to defeat blocks, get pressure, he's impressive, and he doesn't take plays off. He is really competitive. I was very impressed with Miami overall. I would have liked to have seen, like you said, Beck take a few more gambles because their offense definitely looked like it struggled. That running back, holy smokes. Now, he's a legitimate guy. He can make the cut. He's got the twitch. He's got the burst. He's a legit, I think, guy that has to be considered, maybe not early in the NFL draft, but he is going to be an NFL running back.
Well, he did come out, I think, a day or two ago and saying he is going to return next year. So for me, this is a game after last week's performance where Fletcher now can kind of springboard some momentum into next season where, he's probably somewhere in that mid-round range right now. But, hey, he comes back. This offense revolves around him next year. He can probably improve his draft stock. And in many different instances, it's a showcase game for Fletcher for next season. But to your point, it's a showcase game for Beck for the draft evaluators. And it's also a showcase game for Francis Mauigoa, who some people think is the top offensive tackle. And he's going to have his hands full against a Ohio State defensive line where the backups are like All-Americans, Russ. And you talk about Caden Curry and Caden McDonald and Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. I mean, I think this game comes down to which team can apply more pressure on the quarterback, because on the Miami side, you mentioned Messidor and Bain. Well, to me, and Torrey in the second level, and then Keontae Scott is a nice playmaker in the secondary. You just wonder, can these guys generate enough pressure? And Julian saying really hasn't been rattled. And you talk about this guy's completing, I think, 78% of his passes, which is just unheard of. But you wonder, he's almost like a mini Drew Brees back there in the pocket. But you wonder, can Bain and Messidor create enough pressure to rattle Sayin, throw him off this game, keep this game close in the end, and maybe they get a Malachi Tony punt return, special teams, turnover late in the game. I think as long as the Hurricanes can keep this game close, I would not be surprised if they actually do indeed pull off the upset here, Russ.
Well, firstly, a few things. In terms of Fletcher, I know we said like he's coming back. If he has a big game against Ohio State, I honestly think it might be time to, hey, he's had 800 yards last year. He's at 850 now. You're talking, we all know, tread on the tires, running backs. Get in as soon as you can. Even if he's a 4th or a 5th round pick, you get on an NFL roster, you get to prove yourself. It might be time to make that move if I were recommending to him based on that. Talent-wise, he's an NFL guy. But I agree with you. The key for this game to me is going to be, can Miami's offensive line, which has the 2 tackles, Bell, who to me is a little bit inconsistent, the other kid, no doubt one of the best in the country, and some veteran interior guys, can they hold up to Ohio State's just ridiculous defense? Their defensive line, along with the 2 linebackers, Styles and Reese, who they don't blitz a ton, but when they do, they're challenged to pass block when you have to deal with Caden Curry and McDonald and Kenyatta Jackson and one after the other. That's going to be the big challenge in this game. So if Ohio State isn't able to shut down Miami and crush that offensive line, I do think it's going to be a very close game, because I think Sayin played well this year, but recently he's had a few games where he wasn't dominant. He was okay. That Indiana game, he was okay, but he also missed some throws. He got a little rushed and pressured. So I think if Miami can keep Carson Beck clean, I think this will be a close game. But I will say it is going to be a challenge, because as we've talked about, every time we've talked about Ohio State, I can't remember a defense with this many guys who can beat offensive linemen, and not just beat them. I'm not saying just whip them and beat them clean, but just over the course of the game, wear people out, tire guys out. And then when you have Styles and Reese that you can bring off the edges, that can cover guys, it's really tough to be successful. Think about it. Indiana is the number 1 team in the country, the best quarterback in the country, and they basically won a game because Ohio State made some miscues because they couldn't move the ball consistently against Ohio State, and that's the number one team in the country. So, I mean, it tells you how loaded they are on defense, what a great job their front office has done at Ohio State of bringing in just ridiculous talent year after year.
It's crazy because we didn't even mention arguably the best player
Downs.
in college football, Caleb Downs. They got. I mean, they could have top 10 picks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sonny Styles is top 10. Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles will compete for the number 1 overall pick. And I'll even throw Carnell Tate on the offensive side of the ball, who we didn't mention yet. I mean, those are 4 guys on the Ohio State team that could potentially go, never mind the first round. They could all go inside potentially the top 10. And, listen, I think that Ohio State's got to be careful here with the freshman quarterback.
Yep.
I'm going to go Buckeyes here, Russ, 20-13. You have a prediction on the Cotton Bowl?
I'm going to definitely take the Buckeyes. I do think it's going to be lower scoring than we anticipate because I do think Miami's defense is better than people give it credit for, especially with Bain and Mesidor there. But in the end, I think it'll be something like 23-16, 23-17, which means most likely that Ohio State will either win by 40 or Miami's going to win because I never predict games correctly.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get a blowout here in the quarterfinal, but you never know. Ohio State's definitely capable. They have explosive weapons. We mentioned Tate, Jeremiah Smith, and then Max Clare, the tight end, with Kazmarek, the 1-2 combination. All right, he's Russell Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. We're breaking it down. We're chopping it up. We're talking college football playoff quarterfinal.